All right. Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to a special edition. I am from Crystal XO, and of course, this conversation is for Rolling Out and also this YouTube channel because we have been recapping Ready to Love. We have been talking about reality TV as always. And last week, we had a conversation on the reunion part one of Ready to Love, which airs on OWN and a favorite of the channel, a favorite of mine. I enjoy watching the show. I think it adds a realistic reflection of the dating pool for more seasoned adults. And so, in having the conversation about some of the things that have happened this season on Ready to Love, the context of mental health or the conversation of mental health was brought up. And so, I'm going to bring on my co-host Mo, and welcome back, Mo.
All right.
So we were talking last week, and the conversation really went into mental health and how the guest that was supposed to join us, Tequila, decided not to join. And what she told me was that her mental health was not in a good place because of a lot of the feedback
Right.
that was, that was happening because of the clips that went viral from the reunion. I have a couple of clips from the reunion, but what I wanted to do, because I had so many people that were in support of Tequila and said, well, Christal, if someone has an issue with mental health, then you should not pressure them to be on the show. And I want to make it clear, first of all, that I did not pressure Tequila to come on the show. In fact, when she told me finally that she did not want to, I didn't say anything else to her. It's perfectly within her right. I don't pressure anybody to come on this show. This is not a paid show. People come to have conversation, and I really try to add perspective.
But
Um,
after the after, but I think you skipped the part though of
okay.
her wanting the questions prior.
She did. She asked for the questions prior. This is
Right.
all that day. She asked for the questions, and I told her the questions would simply be about what had happened on the show.
Right.
And then she reached out to me. Now, I also want to say that Tequila initially told me that she wanted to come on the show. And we don't know what happened at the reunion. I usually get a chance to see things maybe a day ahead, but
Right.
I had no idea what had happened. But what I wanted to do is to bring some experts in because I don't ever want to be out of pocket. I'm not perfect. I don't, try to be perfect. I want to become better. And so I first reached out to my own personal advisor, who's a good friend of mine who I trust. She is one of those women in my life that if she pulls my coattails on something, I absolutely listen. I had the pleasure of getting to know her through the process at Fix My Life with Miss Iyanla Van Zant. But it was Coach Latanya that I worked with initially that really, pulled my coat on a couple of things. And so I have no problem with being held accountable for my actions. So I want to bring on Coach Latanya. She is a spiritual advisor and counselor to celebrities and just women who are looking to better themselves. So please help me welcome Coach Latanya.
Tanya.
Okay, so I also wanted to make sure, in addition to bringing on Coach Latanya, like I said, who's my personal advisor and who basically has done this work in the reality TV space. If you guys have ever watched Iyanla Fix My Life, a lot of the episodes that they did dealt with the issues that happen on reality TV. But I also wanted to have a licensed therapist that's not a part of the entertainment, section that actually is just doing the work on the ground. And so I brought in a clinical therapist as well to have this conversation. So please help me welcome Mel Preston.
Well, pressed.
So first of all, I want to say thank you to both you ladies for joining me tonight. And I want to let both of you know that Mo and I are going to kind of ask some questions along with the chat. The chat is very active usually.
Right.
And I want to encourage people to please ask questions. I want to play a couple of clips from Ready to Love, and I want both of you to kind of give your feedback. Now, before I do that, I want to make it clear that this is not just about Ready to Love. This pattern happens on reality TV, on many different forums, platforms. It's also not just Black women. It's just women in general. So this conversation is really, this is us talking, but this happens with women in general. There was a situation on Netflix's Love is Blind where two young ladies were making fun of other young ladies on the show. And I want to read this quote that they said because it bothered me. Um, so the pair, this was two young ladies, Micah Lussier and Irina Solomonova. They defended their on-screen behavior after viewers dubbed them as mean girls. The pair spoke with Entertainment Weekly and said, for us, it was really helpful to have a little sense of normalcy, being able to laugh and make light and make jokes. And sometimes the jokes didn't land or didn't look the best, but we needed that to feel like a normal person. So these ladies were making fun of other women on the show. When the show aired and the feedback came, they both, one of them just took their social media pages down and said her mental health was in jeopardy and she needed to take time away, and said that we're both in our 20s and we have to grow from our mistakes. But our coping mechanism was laughing about it. I did not intentionally ever want to hurt anyone. Hearing that I hurt people's feelings genuinely broke my heart. So these type of PR statements we see so often. But I just want to ask the two of you, when we look at it from a state of mental health, where does the boundary between mental health and anxiety and depression stop, and accountability take a come into play? So let me play this quick clip, and then I'm gonna let you ladies do what you do.
Apparently, I may feel uncomfortable when I asked him about the threesome, but I never got to say what was uncomfortable to me. Like, broke energy makes me uncomfortable. Filing bankruptcy makes me uncomfortable.
What was the bankruptcy part?
Yeah, filing bankruptcy.
Because I was in real estate in 08, 07, and all my properties went under.
He didn't deserve that. Oh my God, that made my skin crawl.
So for that to be thrown against me allows me to pretty much make it clear on why I wouldn't move forward with somebody like that.
It's mutual.
Yeah, you're hella immature.
So were you and the people you're sitting on the couch with.
Whoa, this has nothing to do with these women.
All right, so that's a clip, one of the clips from Ready to Love, after which the young lady, Tequila, said her mental health was in jeopardy and she decided not to attend the interview and was really going through a difficult time. I'm going to start with you, Coach LaTanya.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Oh, so talk about cringe TV. There's so many layers coming from the industry, working in the industry, that we absolutely don't know when we're looking. We don't know what producers have said. We do not know what stage has been set. What I can say in my experience with working on Iyanla Fix My Life is, and other shows that I've worked on, we screen. We know, we know, as a coach, producer, you know the background of your guest. That's how we refer to them. You know the background of your guest. So when you put them all together, typically a producer knows what's going on. And I see several layers because I work with the feminine and women in their feminine. And I honestly think, and you all might slay me in the comments, but I think that we have a crisis in womanhood. I would go as far as to say that we have a state of emergency. And we can come at this thing from generational, because when we look at, I often talk about the difference between Gen Z millennials, Gen X. Whereas if you look at it from the group, dynamic, they don't handle conflict very well, nor accountability. This is in the culture. Now, we could get into conversations about who raised them to be that way, but it's in the culture. So what we're seeing is an extension of the psychology of their culture, where there's very little accountability or conflict management. You're talking about a generation who was mostly raised through technology. So who's holding people accountable, particularly women? And then there's a culture that we've created where Black women are off limits. Who created that? And so I do think that we are getting accountability, and what mental health, what the difference is. We're getting it mixed. There's an enmeshment happening where you can't say anything to anyone without there being some type of attack, projection. And then we're using terms. So social media allows us to use clinical terms when certain people have never been in therapy. They've never done the work, but they're using terms from the work. Let me give you some examples. Triggered. Do you really know what your triggers are? Have you done the work to determine what your triggers are? What's the thing that Jada Pinkett and the three did? What's that term?
Was it entanglement?
Entanglement. That's a real term. That's a real spiritual psychology term. What an entanglement is. Now you got people in the culture throwing it around. And then now we're talking about trauma bonding on all these podcasts. People who have not done any type of therapeutic work, any types of rites of passage work. So now we're attaching identities to ourselves without being diagnosed. And I hand that over now to the therapist. There's so much more I could say about the layers of what's happening in our culture that's affecting our psychology and our mental health that I think is at a crisis level, because we're saying one thing, that we want to be in relationships. Basically, that's the statement on this show. I want to be in a relationship. But then you do everything to cancel out being in a relationship.
And that's she's like we're gonna get into it. I want to go over to Mel, and thank you both so much for agreeing. I just really hit them up. I hit Coach LaTanya yesterday, and I was like, please come be a part of this conversation, because we need to talk about this. Mel, thank you for accepting the invitation. I just want to ask your opinion from a clinical standpoint, and who is practicing and dealing with these things every day. When you see this behavior played out on reality TV, it feels like a lot of it is celebrated. A lot of toxic behavior is celebrated on reality TV, and it makes for good entertainment.
Absolutely. So first of all, Christal, thank you for hitting me up, getting in my DMs. I am so happy to be here, and I completely agree with LaTanya and what she started with. Ready to Love is not one of the reality shows I necessarily watch. Now, I do enjoy a good reality show. However, I did go back and watch the very first episode. And upon her entry on the scene, I immediately thought to myself, some producer somewhere knew who she was. They knew that she was not necessarily ready to love or ready for this particular opportunity. And I think it had been said before, where sometimes you need to shake up the cast, right? And at the end of the day, we don't know what producers were working with who. We don't know what was said. We don't know what course of action was set, right? When I looked at even the first reunion episode, body language was just all over the place with her, and just even the rocking back and forth and all of the things, which for me, because I read people for a living, whether you're on my screen or whether you're in my presence, I read people and I do it very well. So just the rocking back and forth, and she made this one statement that for me was a red flag. She said something to the effect of I don't deal with women like that, which goes back to what Latanya initially said, where it seemed as if she came into it already with the chip on her shoulder regarding women, right? And maybe her place with women. And sometimes I think even when you see women who have either been hurt by moms or left or abandoned or in some way the male figure, whether the male left them and they always wanted a relationship with the male, it's almost as if they will readily come to the male's rescue instead of saying, you know what, okay, that was wrong, right? And so I definitely want to touch on that. So a lot of times, even when I'm watching reality TV, I'll say, okay, my therapy spidey senses are tingling, and I'm just kind of making notes and what have you. The other thing I really really want to just kind of chime in from the very beginning is, yes, mental health. These are absolutely buzzwords these days when we talk about emotional wellness. Definitely buzzwords. But the thing is, we all have mental health. The same way we all have physical health, we all have mental health, right? It's just that on a daily basis, we hope that our mental health is good enough to go out into the real world and be productive, right? So even if someone comes along and they say, well, my mental health isn't good today, now they're using it wrong. But we all have mental health. We all have days that we just don't feel our best selves. That's a day in which our mental health, our psyche, we are not as joyful, we are not as pleasant. Everybody has a day when they really just want to lay in bed, right? So we all go through that. All of us have been through pain. All of us have been through heartbreak. It could be that I know for a lot of people, even in the in this industry, right, with the strike that's been going on, everybody in reality TV or just in production in general, in media in general, there's been some stress about that. So I'm sure there are many people who they know they haven't done the work, but being able to just acknowledge, hey, I'm not having a good day, or being able to acknowledge that something is wrong, something is off, I'm stressed. It can be the regular stresses of life. It's just that when those stressors overtake us and cause us to act out, that's when we see it play out in the way that it did with this young lady.
Mhm.
She and again, it's not about her. There were definitely challenges she had prior to coming into the show.
Mhm.
And sometimes before you can be accountable for something, you have to know that you even did something wrong. And that's where the work of therapy comes in, because most of the time, most people really are doing the best they know how. They just don't know any better.
Mhm.
They know what they've been raised around. They know what their generational relationships have been. They know, the situations that they've been in. So if everyone around you talks in this way, sometimes that's all you know.
Right.
So they don't even know that an apology is necessary. And
Mhm.
it really may be that she did not feel anything until she read the comments.
Mhm.
And then you still have to be able to identify, okay, what is it that I feel? Right. So now we throw out the words, okay, I'm triggered, or, my mental health is off. But no, what did you feel? And why did you feel this way? Right.
Mhm.
And then you have to walk through that. So
Yeah.
I'll give it back to you.
I want to ask, I want to bring Mo into the situation because I asked him to, he and I, do these recaps together because I think it was important to have a male's opinion along with a woman's opinion. But I just want to have I just want us to be real honest. I think this is, my channel. I don't have, there's no powers that be here. So I think we can be 100% honest. Mo is one of my good friends. I have a lot of other male friends. Actually, the conversation that we talked about, Latanya, when Shanika and I were on, Iyanla, was really about this part of the conversation of women not holding themselves accountable. And can I just say that both you and Miss Iyanla got in our behinds, but I respected it. And I didn't, when she told us, if dogs keep ending up on your porch, up your wattage, we took a breath. We were like, but I knew that there was truth, and I respected that. So I took that. But I want to ask Mo, because we've had conversations about how so often women of color do not take criticism, not even criticism, just, any type of anything that doesn't agree with what they believe, there's this clap back and defensiveness up. So Mo, can you kind of share what you saw and because there was the mention of the word combative. We're going to get into that. I want both of you guys to talk about that, but I want Mo to speak as a man about what he encounters. And I want you to speak freely. Like I told you, please.
I got you.
We're not going to attack you. We're not going to let them attack you.
I got you. Nah, but I see that. Like the accountability. I posted something today where it was like this thing of what was the show that came out, the Daredevil show, and the women had to go through all these obstacles, and it was a thing under the curtain. They pulled the thing back, and the word said accountability, and all the women were like, and it was that thing. And as a man, I know I see what that feels like, because there's a lot of energy as a male, we feel like when we're wrong, but that same energy is not when you're wrong, or at least I apologize, that's my fault. And usually when we do get that, there's something else behind it that they want. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like, and it's just that accountability of ownership. And somebody told me that a long time ago, if you're going to own something, own it. You can't say my fault, but there's no but in ownership. Own it and leave it at that. And that's a hard thing to find, especially in dating and getting to know someone. And people make mistakes, but it just feels like when it comes to, and I only deal with black women, so I'm just going to say black women or women that I've dealt with, accountability is just not there. Or it's just brushed over real lightly.
Coach Latanya, I want to ask you, because like I said, our first conversation, I was like, oh, but I personally, I appreciate a woman being honest. So even though I was like, oh my goodness, she is just uncovering, I knew that there was some truth to that. So I responded to it and I did the work on it. But there have been other situations that I've seen on the show, specifically on Fix My Life and even other shows, where other people didn't have that response to the truth. So where is that? I don't even understand where that comes from, to where at this point, I heard so many men say you cannot tell a black woman she's wrong. Black women will not apologize. They don't want to hear. Where is that coming from?
Our mothers.
Mm-hmm.
We have we as black women, we have such a contradictory message in where we are protective of the very thing that is wounded. And so for instance, right now we're talking about, we want to live the soft girl season, right? So that's trending now. I want to be soft. So I'm working with women. I'm having conversations with many of these millennials. I'm sitting down at tables and we're talking about this. How can you have a soft life or a soft season when you've seen nothing but your mother, your grandmother, and her mother be hard? Talk hard, move hard, complain about. So we think it's normal. So some of these ladies think it's normal. They think it's communication. Many of us don't even know how to date.
Mm-hmm.
So even with you now, I think you when we did your show, you got to remember your show was a unique show and different than than the average everyday woman. You all are high achieving, high profile women. So we really was just having a dialogue, but in the industry, high profile women, which I do think a lot of this is by design, where black women have been positioned above her man financially. So now you have women who believe that they are financially free. So if he doesn't meet her financially, then in some way he's failed. And I don't really understand where we got all of that from. I know how it happened historically. I do understand some of the implications of even race and culture in that, but we have some type of illusion that the relationships that we do celebrate, that everybody was equal all the time, and that mama was happy all the time, that grandmama was happy. But see, when we really do a check, it's easy to sit on these reality shows and talk about what we see in other people. But all we have to do, sisters, those of you who are watching, is check on your lineage right now. What's the state? Have you seen your mother married and happy? Have you seen your mother be a well-loved woman, affectionate, taken care of? Have you seen your mother be able to just rest and not feel guilty or not have to sacrifice herself? Like, have you seen it? And so what happens, we have generation after generation that internalizes the pain, the wound, the ego, the overcompensation for places that mama wasn't compensated and grandmama wasn't compensated. And so now we celebrate high achievement. And so then you have the woman who in your case, because you always say this, just having a real dialogue, asking questions like, does that make sense to you? Does that line up? You feel checked. But now we have another generation now who's been watching some of y'all on reality TV. We have another generation that's been watching y'all, sisters. And of course, Christal, still, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to people in the comments. I'm talking about to our celebrity friends. You have women that has been watching you, and now we think this is the normal way to show up in rooms. When, that I don't know where these people are from, because, and that's another thing I noticed on this show. I heard this while I was trying to research and get caught up myself. I heard something in one of the exchanges on the show, and we have a lot of migration happening. You have a lot of people coming from the East Coast to the South. And you might not be able to capture that dynamic, but there's a different standard. So the way you talking to one another, you come down South, there's a certain kind of man still down South. Women up North coming. And so now we don't know what dynamics we're looking at on Ready to Love. I see it here in Atlanta. You have all this bravado that's normal on the East Coast, Brick City, New Jersey. And you come into the South, there are cultural mores, standards, and things that don't fly well. People are offended by certain things that we don't know. Like, I lived in DC, and there's certain things like, you do this to somebody in DC, that's offensive. But right in the South, you do that all the time. Come here, baby. Let me talk to you, baby. But I'm just giving a subtle thing, not to minimize. I don't want to minimize the issue.
That's a great. I noticed me when I'm at my day job and I'm talking with my hands to some people in Southern. That's aggressive. And I don't mean to be aggressive. I just talk with And I didn't notice it even with women until I was here for a while, then went back up there, just being distant from it from a while, then going back up to the Northeast, and then I seen it, and I was like, wow. you know, you have to step back from it sometimes to really, and I noticed in the difference. And I was like, oh, okay, I see it now. So you're right.
So thank you for validating that, you know, because I would hear it even in DC, like, you know, there are women who say that they want to be in relationships, and then a southern man comes to DC and have a certain expectation from his woman. And so I think when we're looking, there's the cultural, there's the generational factors and that type of thing, but the lack of accountability, I believe that we've done that, that it has happened over time. I do believe that we can pinpoint a generation, but then that's another conversation. And I'll say this: Gen X is just now starting to really talk about many of the things that they endured through their boomer type parents, right? Or silent generation parents. Whereas you have millennials who came out the gate like talking openly. Now you have social media, everybody can see it. So here's the thing: it's not that it didn't exist. It wasn't that this stuff did not exist. We just didn't see it. And then there's a code in many of our families that we don't talk about our business out in the streets. And then there's, when we start getting into the mother womb in Black women, what I was saying earlier is there's a contradiction, because you carry the womb. You might not get along with your mother. You see the certain breakdowns, but you have people around who say, don't talk about your mama like that, baby. She did the best that she could. So we never get a chance to heal and look into that type of conditioning behaviors, habits, to say, does that really work for me in a way that is going to get me what I want?
I'm trying to pull another clip, and
Wait, though. Man, you hit it.
Go ahead, Mo, because I'm trying to pull this clip. I'm doing 8 things at once. Go ahead.
The same thing with males, and I tried to explain this, and I've just been talking about this recently. Like, they're hearing males talking away, like, and saying now the roles have reversed, and now he's in this soft girl era. And I was like, to me, I'm like, no, men have been feeling this the whole time. You know, my father's generation, his grandfather, they didn't talk about each other. None of the men talked. So now once these platforms started happening, we're hearing other men talking. It's like, oh, somebody else feels that way. We didn't know, because my father and grandfather's generation, they didn't say anything. They just drank themselves to death and held it inside and had so. But it didn't mean they didn't feel it. They was just taught not to discuss it. So now that you're hearing men getting on these platforms saying how they really feel, it's strange to women, but it's just human feelings that, you know, we're taught to suppress.
Oh, can I just highlight what Mo just said? You said we haven't heard men talk like that. So that's the other thing that I have had to share with many women. We don't even, some of us even know what the sound of a man is really, what an alpha leading man is. So when it rises up, if you have any history of abuse, if you have any type of trauma, your defense mechanism rises up, and so you think he's doing something wrong when he's just being a man. And I'm speaking even as a wife with a very strong husband. There are times when I have to let him have his moment and not try to mother him and shut him down or should on him. But I didn't know that initially. I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn on the job. I had to learn by asking other women who had been married. I had to talk to other men. I couldn't shut my daddy down. I did grow up with my father. So what made me think that I was going to get into a relationship and shut a man down that I've chosen, when I couldn't do that with my father? He didn't allow that. So, but many sisters have not seen a man lead and what that feels like and what that sounds like and how to be a little girl. Let's talk about the little girls. How many of you in the comments know what it is to be spoiled by your daddy? To be the apple of daddy's eye, or when daddy says no and you be a little girl and you use that charisma to be able to make daddy say yes. That's a little girl. That's innocence. That's a sweetness. And many of us have not had that experience. And so we have expectations of Black women to be performative, to be the workhorse, the mule, the savior. And then when they don't show up in some way, and we're hard on one another. Because we've learned that mama and big mama and all of them had to raise their girls and spoil their boys. And so there are men who are not accountable as well. But for me, I say this as a coach, as a therapist, as a minister, it's not my job to raise a man.
So let me chime in right quick just on the accountability piece, because we were talking about listening and women not being accountable. And so, Mo, I agree. You know, I know some men who are not always accountable, right? That's, you know, so let's be clear. However, I think one thing of importance, even that we talk about in therapy, is something called dialectics, and something called dialectical behavioral therapy. And it's really where we get these terms such as mindfulness and being centered and all of the things. But when you really break down dialectics, it means we can look at one situation in multiple ways, and all of our perceptions is correct.
Okay.
Right? Because you can't change my perception because it's mine. Right? But usually we are not listening from a place of being mindful. Okay. Mindful means being in the moment, right? And so when we're in the moment, that means we're not thinking about anything else. We're not judging the situation. We are simply in the moment with what is. Usually when we are listening from a defensive stance, which means time the conversation starts, I'm already defensive. So I can't be accountable for something that time you started talking about it, I was already defending it in my mind. Right? You know, those conversations where somebody's just waiting to jump in. They're waiting to jump in so that they can correct you and say, oh, well, that's not the way it was. Well, that's not what I meant. That's not what I said. That's not how it went. Right? Because
due to the approach of the person asking, or is that just how does that initially start off?
So it's multiple ways, right? So even when we're learning how to, as we say, communicate effectively, or just effectively communicate, and I talk with my hands too. So there is a such thing as your body language, right? So or you know, there's body language. Even if I'm having a conversation with my husband, and he said this to me, he'll say, "Okay, you did that thing with your nose." And I'm thinking, what thing? Like, what are you talking about? I'm breathing, right? But for him, there is something that changes in my posture.
Okay.
Or if you're talking to someone and it's the clapping of the hands, or it's the you know, the neck, or as you would, you know, if maybe you're a guy and maybe the tone is abrasive. So you have body language, you have verbiage, which means if we start a conversation off with, we need to talk.
Yeah.
See, do you even just see what you just did? Your entire position changed. And that is what any man would do.
So that's
or even if a woman is being approached and the conversation is, yo, we need to talk, or you know, something like that. A woman, she may not do exactly what you did, but in her mind, her body is already braced to be defensive, right? The mind does not know the difference between a physical threat or whether it's a conversation. All the body knows, all the mind recognizes is For whatever reason, the body thinks it's being attacked, and it's going to go into flight or fight mode, which means I'm not even hearing you. You get in a car with someone, you get in a car with your girlfriend, you get in a car with your significant other, you're going to dinner. Nice dinner, supposed to be anyway. You get in the car, the doors are locked, and then she says, now about last night. Whole mood is ruined.
Yeah.
Right? So there are several things. Number one, there is when did you decide to have the conversation? Now, if we come to you as a guy in the middle of football season or Sunday night, Monday night games, and it's, well, did you do this? It's you're automatically turned off. But women, we're the same way. So there's the body language, there is verbiage, and then there is just the way we hear you, the way you started off. Okay, so you have those things, and then I'm going back to the very beginning of just learning how to communicate effectively.
But
How did we start out? How did we even start out listening? Because if you start talking and all I hear is, I'm still not doing things right. It's me. What else do I need to do? What other hoops do I need to jump? You're telling me you didn't like what we had for dinner. I hear it as, you don't like anything I do.
I want to play this.
I'm not even listening. Yeah, so I'm not even listening from a place to even be able to receive what you actually even mean. Go ahead, Christal.
So I want to play this clip because I want the both of you to kind of dissect it, because to Taquilla's point, she's not the only one that has been going viral this season on Ready to Love. We also have some of the other ladies. I want to get more into that combative word, because we know that there are certain words when it comes to Black women, combative being one, aggressive being another, that it's just it's a trigger word. So and it causes a lot. But I want you guys to watch this clip. This was a digital clip that was not shown on the show, and I actually think it should have been a part of the show, because we see a lot of times the women are fighting back and forth and the men are kind of the collateral damage in the middle and don't really know how to handle it. So this clip was really interesting to me because it really speaks to what all three of you guys were saying. If you're just watching, we're having a conversation about mental health, specifically as it relates to reality television and social media. So I'm going to play this clip from Ready to Love with Janelle and Quentin, and then I want to have Coach LaTanya and Mel chime in on their thoughts.
Criticize or try to make you think a different way of how you should react, whatever like that. This is just any situation. But one thing that I attest to myself is once something has happened, don't let it fester.
Listen, what you see is what you get. And I think it was good that Quentin was there when the situation happened. And I think that Quentin has always allowed me to be me. You know, he's trying to be supportive. He just wants me to calm down in this moment. And he just really wants me to let it go. What bothers me right now is the principle.
Okay.
And the principle is not going away. The principle is, I have this presence, and so because I have this presence, I should adjust because it makes other people uncomfortable.
No. Why should you adjust?
No, I'm just saying, I feel like that's what the principle is. Like, everybody can be any kind of way, but because I, have whatever personality, then it's on. Well, I'm just saying that's what gets me.
Do you feel like you were in the wrong of any of those situations?
No.
Okay.
Okay, let me just add a little context to that conversation. Janelle had a situation where she blew up at the other ladies and on the retreat, and actually, there were names exchanged, called the other women ugly ass bees, a very, very ugly situation. Quentin we don't know when that scene was taped, but he's trying to say maybe there's another way that you can react. And we see the two of them right then having a conversation, and she's adamant. What stood out to me and why I pulled that clip was because she said, what you see is what you get. And so often I hear women say, this is just how I am. This is it. This is me. And she said, this is how I am. I'm glad he was there because he needs to let me be, or he lets me be me. There's no accountability for, and he seems uncomfortable in how to phrase it to her to where she can understand. I'll start again with you, Coach LaTanya. What did you see from that clip?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I saw someone who has a big presence. Janelle has a very big energy, and she probably didn't always, it's not a new thing. It's something she's always had and was condemned for it. And now she's developed this overcompensation, this defense mechanism of acceptance. So she says that she accepts it, but the truth is she's fighting with it, because if she wasn't fighting with it, she wouldn't be fighting with anybody else. And there's a lot of women, Black women in particular, who have this presence where I have it, where you show up in the room, your presence can make people uncomfortable, and you either go one or two directions. You start to feel wrong, or what did I do, or and you people please, or you go all the way to the other end. So when we see arrogance, it really is a compensation for insecurity. Now, I did see him be gentle with her. So her incentive, she needs someone who can be gentle with her. But eventually, I see that a man like that being exhausted, worn out, because now he's taking on cultivating something in her that he's going to have to fight with a little bit to get her to be able to listen, to be able to hear. I see someone who underneath probably is very soft, but she doesn't know how to get there. She doesn't know how to access that. And it is something that it probably has been rewarded in her life, with her achievement in other places. And so why does she have to change? It's everybody else's problem. They need to adjust. And I know we say things like that. We say these one-liners, we repost now all of these different things. But I see a dynamic where he was trying to give her to ask her some questions. And she was trying, I think she was trying to listen. The incentive was that she wanted him. But what happens when she doesn't? What happens at home when he hits a nerve? He should be wise. A man who's watching like that. And I also see a little bit in him too. Now we're focusing on the women, but there was something going on with that brother. He has an unmet need that he is also trying to get met through women. And I see someone who is a rescuer. And so we always talk about the narcissist, but the narcissist and the empath, they go hand in hand. They're the perfect couple. Guilt and shame go together. So there are certain toxicities that we carry that play off of one another. We have a toxic soup and we call it a relationship. And so that's what I saw. I saw more, but I do understand her. I never saw that clip, of course. And she was dealing with her presence, I heard. When I come in, if I say this, she has a mentality of damned if I do and damned if I don't. And so she fights for being right. And we're talking about Janelle, but she's an archetype. She's a prototype of many different types. I hope we get to this combative thing, because she was quintessential combative. But so was the other young lady who was called combative directly, but it came across as nice nasty. You know, that's what we call it down south. Nice nasty is still combative.
Right.
Janelle was the warrior type woman who was outright combative. There's a prototype in the feminine as well. And so there's different types, but who taught us our types to know where we fall in and what adjustments and how we access other parts of ourselves, so that we can meet the complement where we need to in the middle. There's many faces of the feminine. So even when we're talking about this soft girl season, we're not talking about a woman has to be weak, meek, mild, not express herself, not speak from her heart, because that's the model that women have been rejecting. And we've gone to an extreme now that we have this type of thing playing out on TV.
Mel, I'd love to hear your feedback on that clip, and then and then after that, I definitely want us to talk about the combative term, because I want Mo to share how he initially was like, "Oh, I see it. I see exactly what they're talking about." But let's Mel, give us your feedback on that clip.
So there were several things I saw. The three main words that stuck out to me. The first word would be coddling. Right? Because when you hear someone who says, well, this is just who I am, usually, number one, I even say in therapy, okay, that's the cheat way out. Because when we say this is just who I am, what we're really saying is I don't want to do the work to change, because it takes more work to pull yourself in and become what we call self-aware. So I see a guy who in all of his being nice, and we have to be careful with being nice and coddling, because when we're coddling, all we're doing is training people how to treat us. Right? So I guarantee you, if you were to go back into the prototype Janelle, because we all know them. These are the ones who, when they come around and they're loud and they're spicy and whatever, someone somewhere you hear faintly say, oh, that's just how she is. Oh, that's just how he is. Oh, don't. Oh, he was being rude and mannish and whatever. Oh, don't pay him any mind. He's the one, we just ignore him. Well, guess what? What you have done is given him or her the platform to continue in a behavior that is not okay. Right? So now we're coddling. So because we're coddling and we are training people, we are allowing these behaviors, then you have what we call flooding, because then these little kids, they grow up to become what we call adult children. And when you have flooding is when you are so overcome with emotions that you don't know how to do anything with, that you act a fool. This is when we come unglued and we apologize later. Right? This is when we're out doing Jasmine Sullivan, we're busting windows and clowning, and then you think the next morning, oh my God, what did I do? Because we are flooded. And because we're flooded and we don't have the language, we hear, we see, we perceive something that we didn't like, and we judge it before we take it through the process of figuring out, okay, number one, what do I feel? Can I even identify that? Why do I feel this way? What was the need I had that was attached to this feeling? Right? And usually by the time someone is flooding, there are already things that have been happening within the body that they are not aware of. So even in therapy, what we try to teach, or what I try to teach women to do, and even guys, is start to recognize your own body. Because there was something Janelle did even in that clip. As he started to talk, she did this. Right? And for me, that was enough. Like she was already there. Mm-hmm. And if he had said anything contrary to being soft and affirming, she she would have gave him the business as well. She would have, because usually there's a paper trail, there's a domino effect, right? Where we come into a situation and we don't remember how we were upset about one thing the day before, the week before, the month before, that already had a seed, and it's just continually being watered, right? And then we get into something, we're triggered, and because we have not done our due diligence on really figuring out why we feel and how, and to identify what we're actually feeling, we then overreact.
Mhm.
And even in the overreacting, most people, when you talk to them afterwards, they don't really feel much better because it's a bandage.
Mhm.
It will not heal the wound. It won't.
So let's talk about because this season, a big portion of this season was surrounding the hype around the word combative. There was a young lady named Jessica who actually it's interesting because we're talking about dating, a dating show. And initially Jessica was very attracted to Chris. Chris was really attracted to Jessica. And Chris said, I need to see a softer side. I'm not seeing that from her. He said that once, he said it again, and then he decided this is not for me. And he said he named the he said that it was combative energy. It was too much of that, and it was a turnoff for him. And that spiraled into a situation where eventually, um, that was why she was let go. Marie mentioned it at her at the I guess the situation where they come to where they decide who leaves and who doesn't. Janelle then approached the entire group of guys and said, how dare you? Do you think that it was appropriate to call a Black woman combative? And so all the guys were going, and nobody wanted to own it, everybody, but the behavior, if you go back and watch the show, Chris was very clear about what he didn't like. And it wasn't her person, he was attracted to her. It was the behavior and the fact that he didn't see a soft place for him. So Mo and I had a conversation about that offline. So I want you to share from your perspective, and then I want Latanya and Mel to be able to explain where does this come from and how, because I feel like a lot of times it's misinterpreted, right? Because I probably have had that energy in my past, but I'm aware of the fact of, wait a minute, this is how it's coming off to a man. I had to learn that as part of the work that I still am working on. As I'm learning to be a wife in a different way than I was before. But a lot of times I don't think we understand how men are reading our energy. And so I want Mo to be able to explain what he meant, because when she did the interview, I enjoyed her very much, but he immediately was like, I recognize that right there. That's what he's talking about.
All right. Okay, Coach Tanya, you said the word nice, nasty. That's worse than being nasty to me. The nice, nasty is just, and that's what it was. And I was saying, even in the comments, when you see something enough times, you can recognize it early and say, that's not for me. And when you do that, you form your boundaries. And for some reason, it seems like when men have boundaries, it becomes an issue, especially, I guess, the prettier she is, I dare you have boundaries with me. And that's what it feels like. And I think that's the thing that bothered her more than anything, you know. And I just seen that. I've dealt with enough women to be like, you know what, that's not for me, because we're really going to get into it, and I just rather not do it. But
can you explain what it is? Because when we're talking, you explain to me what that behavior is. So because a lot of the women in the comments are asking, Mo, what does it look like? What does that behavior look like to you?
It's cold. God, oh man, it's cold. It's distance. It's a matter of fact. It's checking me. I see no room for me to I don't want to say be a man, but it's not a comfortable space when I'm with someone and that's their energy. I feel like I shouldn't have to feel like as a man I'm on pins and needles, or I know if I do this we're gonna get into it, so let me not do it. Now I'm not comfortable. Now I don't want to be here, and it burns in that, and it's this cold attitude. It's gonna sound crazy, but it seems like a lot of women that are buried into their work, and while we're on dates, and they're constantly on their phone, and it comes with this. It seems like it comes with this boss CEO life, and not knowing when to turn it off. Like you're the boss over there, but you're not the boss here, and it's that not turning that switch off that bothers me. And when I see women with it, I'm like, okay. And it usually comes with their occupation. I don't see some other women that are not in charge of other people or have other people on the payroll act like it's the women that are the boss chicks that seem to possess their energy to me.
Can you help us, Coach LaTanya?
I could be
wrong. In some processes, we have something that's called feedback. Feedback is neutral, but many of us have not been taught how to receive feedback. And so even in the comments, people are saying, what's wrong with combative? And it's an adjective. It describes your behavior. So why was there a movement against the men to say they shouldn't say it? No, they said it. Now, a woman who has done a little work may ask, well, what do you see? Let me inquire. Let me ask, tell me how I'm combative. Because if you're a wife, your husband or your boyfriend or your fiance may give you feedback about how you're showing up to him. Mel already said it. We all have our perceptions. So how you're showing up to someone else is feedback about how they're receiving you. It does not have to be the truth. They made it the truth and a whole collective thing. Don't say that about Black women, but it was Black women who was saying, no, you are combative. And so why is it that also, I know you all said that the men didn't say anything, but why wasn't it some sisters, or why wasn't it aired that women said to other women that you are a little combative, sis. You do come across a certain kind of way, sis. But we want to fight for what? Fight to be right, fight for our position. So it's feedback. I think that we just don't know how to receive feedback. Again, I really do think that it has a lot to do with this generation who had their soft skills are just not there. Their conflict resolution skills are just are not there. And so anything you say, now we just cut people off. We block them. We don't have a discussion. We don't sit down at the table and discuss it. We don't know how to forgive. And these are skills that you have to have in order to have a long-term relationship. So that really got on my nerves. I'll be honest with you. It's hard to watch now. It is sometimes Ready to Love is hard to watch from a therapeutic point of view, because the damage that I see being done to male-female relationships in the culture, I hope that if your fans who are watching understand that is not the standard, right? It's not the standard. And you said something earlier, Christal, about knowing how to turn it off. Many of us don't even know how to be turned on women. Can I go there for a minute? Many of us are not turned on. We're not already turned on when we're dating. We don't show up turned on. See, sensuality is not something that's been cultivated. We know how to be sexy. And then if you have sexual trauma, the moment that someone comes to you for the sex that you're presenting or leading with, you're afraid or you're triggered. But sensuality is a spiritual experience, it's an embodiment. And so we don't know how to be turned on women. And so now we're going on dates, malnourished, a malnourished feminine, a depleted feminine, empty emotionally. We're showing up. And so now we're going on dates with interview questions, like Mo said, like we're still at work in human resources. I'm hiring somebody to fill the position versus I am getting to know someone who I'm going to build a life with. Not to mention if there's any entitlement and expectation that the man will be your ATM.
Thank you.
So now here we come to the table checking off. Do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? And now in the culture, it's okay to say it's not that many men out here. The devil is a lie. It's plenty of men out here. And if you don't have that mindset that there are plenty of men, then unto you as you believe. You get to be right. It gets to be true for you. And until you change your mindset and start to inquire about how I got here, how my mama got here, I keep on going to mama because, like Iyanla, like others of us who show up to do this work, who else is going to tell you? I had to do it. I had to heal a daddy wound and a mother wound. I had to do that work. And I've been a wife, I've been divorced, I've shown up as the little girl in a marriage looking for my husband to be my daddy. And so we are showing up not even knowing how to date. We're interviewing. We're putting people in categories now. And so we and when I say this, I'm literally talking about skill. It's not just intellectual, sisters. And so we don't know when I say turned on, I'm not talking about an air. I'm not talking about performance. I'm talking about skills of how to be in the presence of a masculine and enjoy the moment, get the information that you need without policing, without being judge and jury, and really stewardship. Can you leave someone better than you found them? I understand that there are men out here who are not doing that. I get that. But at a certain point, when a woman raises her vibration, she won't even attract that kind of man. And I know, and then so they say, "Oh, sis, I'm sick of saying I got to do something." It is you. It's only you and God in the room. It's you. And then once you recognize the God in another person, and they now you come together. Now, this doesn't have to be cookie cutter. I'm not talking about a one size fit all. That's not what I'm saying for those who hear something in these short segments that we have here. I'm talking about being able to remove layers and question your filters, question your reactions, and then even use old experiences as your teacher, as your lesson. What did I learn about myself? See, if you're still mad at Boo Boo, who your baby daddy, and he's the problem, you chose him. What made you choose that? So that puts me right back at me. Let me look at how I'm choosing. What's my picker? Oh, well, he lied to me. Okay, where am I lying to myself? So relationships are mirrors. And so when we look at the mirrors that are around us, then sometimes we may not like what we see, but we have an opportunity to make adjustments when we can see ourselves. When you can't see yourself, that's what I feel in summary, is that we're looking at a lot of people who have blind spots, who cannot see themselves and are offended. And that's the danger of the ego on a spiritual level, on a psychological or transformational psychological level, is when you cannot see yourself, you are dangerous to yourself and to other people. That's strong, right? I know that's strong.
No, this is good, and this is good. I am taking it all in. This is good conversation. Mel, I want to ask you about those words, because we hear the response that I get. I've even been told as a Black woman that I can't say a Black woman is wrong, and I cannot say that she was aggressive. There was another season of Ready to Love where in this show, it kind of mimics dating on steroids. And so a woman had given a man her number. There were all these other women, and then she approached him and asked him why he hadn't called, and why and to me it seemed aggressive. So I said that, and the comments went crazy. It's like, you cannot say, Christal, you should know better than calling a Black woman aggressive. And I'm like, I am a Black woman. Like, I could say about my sister what she needs to hear. I feel like if anyone can say something about a Black woman, it's another Black woman. So I would love to hear your perspective on, why are these words such a trigger point? Now, we all know the history and the fact that there are others that have pit us, that have defined us as angry and all, an angry Black woman and unable to deal with certain things. But to me, when it's us talking to us, and it's a conversation with us, why are we so triggered, and why are we so defensive when it comes to someone just sharing their opinion on actions, not even necessary descriptions of us, but our actions?
So first of all, I want to say, and this goes back to what Coach Latanya and Mo, what you both said. One of the things I say all the time is, you will follow you wherever you go. If every job you have, everyone is the problem, you will follow you everywhere you go. Right. So that's number one. When we talk about combative, another word we use is passive aggressive. This is nice, nasty, but our term is passive aggressive. What that looks like is, he went out tonight. No, he asked you if he could go out tonight. No, you don't want him to. Instead of being honest, you say, I'm fine. Have a good time. Then when he gets home late, he gets in bed, it's you're yanking covers, right? This is passive aggressive, because what we're not sharing is, I really didn't want you to go. I really wanted you home with me. So again, we're going back to language and learning how to correctly have these conversations. Mo, you said something earlier. Men back in the day, they drank the problems away. They drank the emotions away because they didn't have verbiage. I think it's just in my generation, and I'm barely millennial, right? Tiptoe barely. So millennials don't even consider me a millennial.
Right.
But we are just getting into learning the language of putting words to what I really feel, right? Okay. Versus the belief that I just need to choke it down. I can't say anything, right? So when we're talking about being combative, it goes back to how I hear that. What is my genesis? Where did it come from? So when you're talking about these CEOs and these boss women, number one, when you say those words to that C-suite female, number one, you're already saying something that she's only heard in a negative connotation. So she can't even hear it from a place of, you actually care. Okay. Right? So number one, you have to figure out, okay, here is who I'm talking to. And in knowing the character and behavior of this woman that I am trying to get to know, maybe combative is not the word. Right? And even when we're telling someone, Here is what I don't need from you. Here, I need soft. Well, can you explain what soft is? One of my oldest daughters, she would send me this TikTok, and it was about Black moms who could not teach curriculum. And back in the day, your mama, she didn't actually explain it. She would just talk louder and louder and louder and somehow expect you to get it, right? It's the same context. So if I'm constantly saying, I need you to be more loving. I need you to be softer. Okay, what does soft look like to you? Have you even defined what soft looks like to you for this particular relationship? Right? Because soft over here isn't the same as soft over here. So before we go to said woman with the verbiage of, you're a little bit combative. Okay, well, can we define what we need? What is it about her? So that you've done your work. Because at the end of the day, your perspective is your perspective. And so you have to funnel through, okay, here is what I hear from her. What is my feeling about it? What are my emotions? What do I need? And so you in turn learn how to change your verbiage. So instead of even going to her and saying, oh, I need you to be a little softer, right? Maybe it's, when we're having XYZ conversation, sometimes I feel, right? Because you're pointing back to you. You're because all she sees, even if you're not doing it, is you're pointing fingers and you're blaming her. So she can only hear you from a defensive place, right? So if you're going to her and you're saying, well, when we had XYZ conversation, I felt, I don't know, sad. I felt challenged. And you've already assessed your need. And what I figured out I need is more clarity from you, or I need more transparency, right? So then you at least give her a chance to hear you with an open ear, so that she can then, because communication is a two-way street. So then she's able to say, well, what do you mean by that? And you're able, because you've done your work, you're able to then say, well, okay, well, when this happened, and you're still not saying, well, when you did, right? Because it's, again, you got to point it back to you. So there is some fairness in the statement of combative, but you've got to think about where it came from, right? So there is no way in this society in 2023 that you can say to a Black woman, or even a Black guy for that matter, that he is aggressive, he is combative, because we've only always heard negative connotations toward that. And then secondly, she may not have figured out if you're worth the return on her investment to be soft.
Okay.
Right? So that's a completely different layer to the conversation, because if she's going to come out of that hard shell that she's already developed to get to where she is, right? Because she's been taught she can't be wrong. She's been taught she can't turn off. She's been taught she can't ask questions. She's been taught that there is no place for her at this level to be soft. And if every time she's ever tried to be soft in the past, it's gone wrong, she has to assess, okay, is this a trip I'm willing to take? So we might not be able to go to her with certain words, right? So that's why we work on our verbiage, because you can say exactly what you mean, but put it in loving terms. Put it in terms where you recognize the pain that's within.
Right.
Beyond the heels, beyond the suit, beyond the cute makeup, the weave, the whatever, you recognize there is a girl in here somewhere who has not, she didn't cheat to get to this level. So if she is here, there's reason why she's here. So let me start to try and understand who she is. And in understanding who she is and where she comes from, then you use that to determine how you love her, how you talk to her, how you interact with her.
But can I ask you this real quick? And I know there's one more point I want to hit, but it would seem, and I've said this to girlfriends, and I guess I like honesty more than I don't want to be coddled. I want you to tell me if I'm wrong. And I don't have women around me that can't take that same, direction. I like to be able to say, friend, I love you, but that's not right. Um, but I understand what you're saying about choosing words. But I a lot of times I tell friends, and I'm thinking of a couple of friends in particular, in order for a man to give you that much grace, just like you said, she has to think that you're worth it. He also has to see enough in you to be worth him looking past that coldness or that disconnect, right? And a lot of times, I'm just speaking from personal conversations I've had with friends. I don't know any of these ladies on the show personally. A lot of times women assume if a man is attracted to them physically, then that means he'll have enough invested in me to look past that. When I was talking about the situation, it's like, okay, well, understand that probably behind that exterior is I'm going to read this quick quote from Jada Pinkett's book. That's coming out that is so powerful to me, because she said, and I think a lot of Black women can relate to this, the most potent love language for me has always been the language of protection. And a lot of times if a woman doesn't feel protected, or she doesn't feel like she can trust you, she won't even allow you to see that softer side. But in turn, don't we have to acknowledge that in order for a man to try to get past that defensive side, you got to give him something besides just pretty for him to be invested enough to get to know that side of you as well, correct?
Well, I definitely, when you were talking, Mel, I was thinking of my husband, and I was thinking of being a wife. And I remember, and I'm skilled. I've done the work. I've taken the trainings. I have the degree. All of that. But when you're in a relationship with the average Black man, he doesn't have that type of process. When you say he has to know how to talk to you, how to say this language, I can tell you that my husband didn't have all of those skills. And I think we look over a lot of good men who don't necessarily, they didn't go to school to be our therapist to pick language like that. They don't know how to say that type of thing. So there will be times where I know, and I'm going to use can I do that for those of you who are in the audience? Because it's cool to just to come on as the expert, but this is a lived experience. See, I wasn't perfect. See, I didn't go in with my degree. I didn't. My degree wasn't the thing that kept my marriage together or broke it up. It was the blind spots. It was the things like that. And so I was thinking, as Mo was listening to you, it looked like your eyes were glazing over as Mel was talking about, well, you got to know. And my husband would say to me, I'm not your client. I'm not one of your clients. My husband comes from a different culture. His profession is different. So it took time. But if we quit, if we fight, if we're going off, we don't have the time to cultivate that. And so for me, for instance, I'll use myself because I'm healed, so I can use a healed example. There's a certain tone in a man's voice that used to trigger me. And so my response would be, I don't like the way he's talking to me. And in New Orleans, we call it booting up. So I start booting up. I'm ready for you. Yeah, on the East Coast, y'all might call it something else. But I don't like that, and I have an attachment to what's coming. So now I respond in a different way. Now, when I'm married, I can say, I don't like the way you're talking to me. Don't talk, or we'll say something like, don't talk to me like that. And he'll say, well, don't talk to me like that. This is how it really does go down in most relationships. Right. We don't really have these clinical tools to be able to say, now, what are you feeling?
Say, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to?
Yeah, that's really how we do, right? Yeah. Who are you talking to? And so those are clues though, ladies. If you have had a man and brother and Mo, if you had a mate, a partner say to you something, the same thing, it's a different pair of pants, a different dress, a different suit, there's a pattern there. There's something that you're not seeing. So our life is always giving us feedback.
Mhm.
Our world is, if your relationships, if it's just, oh, well, he cheated on me. Okay, that's a big thing. Cheating is a deal breaker. So everybody knows what their deal breaker is, but how did you get in the deal? How did you broker that deal? What was the negotiation? What did you pretend like you didn't see?
Mm.
Why am I attracting liars? And I wanted, you said, Christal, you said you got to have more than pretty. To the brothers who watch, I blame you too. Y'all making fun of the BBLs, but you encouraged it.
Did we?
Yes.
Did we?
Yes.
I don't know. Tell me. What's your you
Yes.
seem to
Yes, you did.
you seem to have a different view.
I think the thing that is our fault is not telling you we're looking at something, but it's not you don't see the context in which we look at it in. And especially nowadays, I think if you see a man from across the room look at a woman and she had the BBL, she had the outfit, and he's staring at her, you tend to think, well, some women tend to think that that's what he wants. No, that's what he wants tonight. Don't get it confused. My thing now that I see is I have women who are wife material competing with hoes. Stop. It's you competing with hoes. Yeah, I'm looking at her.
Again, Mo.
You want to see me for the night? Because I can see you for the night. I look at you for, yeah, don't compete. You're jumping over here, and then you're wondering why he just don't compete with her. But they compete for the attention. And women will tell you, well, if you just wanted to sleep with me, there's plenty of women out there that'll just sleep with you. You ain't have to, well, point them out. Point them out. And you know why they wouldn't point them out? Because in the nightclub, all the attention would go to those women and they wouldn't get any. So it ain't about us. You're competing with her and my attention to her, but my attention is only for the night. And we might not, maybe we should explain that, but don't get it confused. I'm only looking for her now. I would take my time and get to know you, but you don't see that. And no one explains that to women, but that's what's really going on. And then we have this thing with in the late 90s, when I was first hearing about the butt shots and all this stuff, there were only strippers getting that. Now you have the girl that works in the office. You're competing with, I don't know who's who anymore. I used to know by looking at them. I don't even know them.
No, and that's true, but men are also not educated. Just like I was talking to women about their sensuality, men are not educated about their sexuality either. So if you have a porn culture that's been cultivating men have a distorted relationship with what stimulates them. So who's teaching young boys how to cultivate their sexual energy in a way that serves them? Sex, see, now we would start getting into these institutions and cultural places that have shamed us and made us afraid to have conversations that heal us, conversations that where, oh no, it's your fault, no, it's your fault. No, both are uneducated. So you have boys showing up and being easily stimulated in grown men bodies. And yes, you're right. I can hear what you're saying. You're right. It is happening where women have lost themselves with competing with hoe culture, as you say. But the kind of work I do is I educate women on what the hoe is. There is a sacred whore. But many of us don't know, so we shame the sacred whore. She has a role in culture. The sacred prostitute has a role. She takes the war out of men. And so black men who have been at war, there's been a war on black men. So he's looking for refuge in the legs of a woman, any woman, And we don't, so, but we haven't had those types of conversations. And sisters, a lot of times you all don't prioritize therapy and processes that teach you because you think you already know. I already know how to be a woman because I'm paying bills. I don't need anybody to tell me about my feminine because I know how to put on the red bottoms. I know how to do this. I know how to show up. So you don't, there's no priority for us to learn this. These are things that we used to learn in rites of passage. These are things that men used to teach young men. These are things women would teach women how to care for themselves. And so we have to reclaim it. I really do think that these conversations are healthy. I do think that there's a generation of us who have been quiet for too long. We have been passively watching. And so we have a generation of young women who are mad as hell. Nobody, mamas and aunties, did not sit down and teach them this. And so they're learning on reality TV. They're learning on reality TV. Who taught them?
And that's why I hope this channel is a small piece, very small, but I try to have conversations like this. The last question I want to ask, because I appreciate and honor each of you for taking your time out. I want to come back to the initial reason I had this conversation. Where is the accountability for our actions, right? And when we are on reality, well, not even on reality shows. I used to teach a class to middle school girls, and I would tell them what they posted on social media. You are the star of your own reality show, right? So if you get angry and you post something about a boy, that is telling the entire, whoever's following you and whoever's following them, that is describing more of who you are than that boy, right? And I feel like that's what we see on reality TV. So my entire conversation last week with Mo was not to tear down anyone, and I just want to say a public apology if it seemed like I was being hard on Tequila. It really isn't. It really is because I love her. I love her as a sister, and I feel like, and I told her in her text, I said, when she said, "Don't be mad at me when you see what I've said," and I said, "I'm not mad at you, but a woman takes accountability for her actions." And I said, that's not easy to do, but if you do that, you will detonate that fire, right? So once you own up to what you did and you say you're sorry, then people can keep talking, but there's not much to talk about when you say, "Yep, I did it and I was wrong." So I'm going to come out right now and say, if I didn't show the amount of empathy maybe that my audience needed, I definitely respect mental health issues. I think all of us suffer from mental health. So I want to be the bigger person and say that. And that's why I brought someone that I am accountable to in Coach Latanya. And I want to ask you and also Mel, how do we deal with that? How can I as a older sister share with the younger sister that she does need to be accountable for her actions? Some of this feedback, some of this backlash is because of something that you had control of. How do we do that in a way that's loving and still healthy and takes her mental health into accountability, but also just does hold her accountable to her contribution to this whole mess? I'll start with you, Mel. How do we do that?
I think it all comes down to your words, right? Because when you're going to your friend, when we go back to that combative conversation, when you're talking to your homegirls, your homegirl already knows your heart. So I can say to my homegirl, I can say, "Sis, I think that was wrong," right? And because we already have an established relationship, there's a level of grace that's already there, right? Because you're sisters, you fight, you disagree, but at the end of the day, there's already an established relationship. But I think we have to have the same grace, the same empathy, even for those that we're not necessarily in relationship with, right? And as a world, we just don't generally tend to have that. So what you see is, I want to go to someone who I don't know and say, "Sis, I think this was wrong." Well, sis doesn't know me. Sis doesn't know my heart, my intention. against the rest of the world who's coming at her in maybe a negative way. And so I think there's always a way to say whatever it is you need to say. But it has to, or it should be done in love, and it by extending grace. I do believe in accountability. But and to your point, Latanya, my husband and I, we are from Mississippi. From the dirty.
Me too, girl.
Really, girl? So it is not like, even being a therapist, it is not like these tips, tools, techniques just work, because that is not true. It takes work, and it takes learning how to say things in a way that I am not out to be your enemy. Right? Like, and even if it were the young lady from the show, I am sure if she had not been bombarded with whatever hate or whatever judgment came from the world, there is probably a different conversation that could be had with her, or the prototype of just the hard, combative woman that does say, yo, I love you, and man, what's going on? Right? Like, I care.
Yeah.
Instead of we're coming across like everyone else. So I really just think it's all about verbiage, grace. Grace all day long. It's available for everyone. And take everyone you see at you can't take everything at face value. Sometimes the combativeness may not have anything to do with you. Anything to do with whatever it is you think you may have seen on a show or in a moment, because all of us have a real life. And in life is lifing. And life is good right now. And the next minute, life may not be so good. And so you have to always take that into consideration when you're having these conversations with people.
Coach Latanya, how do we do that and still deliver the message that what you did was the seed that grew into the fruit that you reaped? How do we do that in a way where we still hold our sister accountable, but in love?
So I think that one of the ways that we can do that is bringing ourselves and parts of our own story to the conversation, rather than talking in the third person or talking about shoulds or the public. I think that when we're working with our young sisters, that we have to be able to bring our story, bring our lessons to them in the first person, and not be afraid to be transparent with them. Because what I do know and what I do love about Gen Z and millennials is they respect real. And when you have been when you've experienced reality TV and production, it can be traumatic, and you don't know who to trust on top of whatever issues that you already have. And so these are not sacred spaces, because I don't care what you all say about Iyanla Fix My Life, what you all don't know is that we would pray, we would do the diagnosis, we would prepare weeks before a person showed up. We would do the sessions before they even got on camera, and then we would take care of them in between sessions. The average production is not doing that. And so now you have incident after incident after incident. Now they're coming on in the public and talking. I think the best way for you to be, Christal, is to be yourself and to bring yourself. A lot of them get tired of people telling them how they should have been, how they should have shown up, what they should have done. So that's more defensiveness. They're tired of hearing that, like that. So we have to bring ourselves. So that's why I use myself. I didn't always know. I have had feedback from husbands that nobody else taught me. And you heard me say husbands plural, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I ain't Shane. My last name Taylor. I have to be Elizabeth Taylor. But no, this one I have is So, but I had to learn. I had to learn because my mother didn't have those skills to teach me that. The skills my mother had was to teach me how to protect myself. Baby, save your money. Have you some mad money. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Y'all know my mama told me things that was going to help me take care of me. Get your education. Don't depend on no man. How many of y'all black women have heard that? Don't you depend, baby. Don't put yourself in a position where you have to depend on no man. So now psychologically, we have a generation of women who don't. And so I had to learn how to trust, how to negotiate, how to be able to sit down, and even to be able to identify, where not to step in and rescue and be codependent and enabling. So I had to learn that. And I think that when you sit down with other young women, you have to tell them. Iyanla would tell them, you're not going to like me in this conversation. I'm telling you now, you may not like me. Why do y'all think she was doing that? And because you cannot sacrifice truth in relationship. So I think Christal, don't sacrifice the truth for the ratings. I'm looking at the comments, and people are refreshed by being able to have this type of dialogue and conversation, because it's not happening, because it's going to be edited anywhere else. So this is real. And maybe Tequila will come back and you can talk about it on air as a demonstration of, well, she can be able to say, I was feeling shame, I was feeling embarrassed, I was afraid, I was exhausted from having to defend myself. Whatever the case may be, it would be a wonderful thing if Tequila and some of the others could come back, if their heart takes the lesson. Because a lot of you all think, yes, we've said what we said about production, but that camera is the all-seeing eye. And what you don't see about yourself, that camera will show you.
Yeah.
So you cannot say everything is production. It will show you some things about all aspects of yourself that you may not have ever seen. And everybody I know that has been on reality TV for the first season, y'all see they start changing by second, third season. You see them changing, don't you? There's a reason, because that all-seeing eye exposes you, and it's addictive too, by the way.
Yeah. So that brings me to my last question, and I want to start with you, Latanya, because you work this industry, not just with Iyanla, but other reality shows, and have counseled some of the women on there. Several of the ladies, I've talked to several of the women from Ready to Love, not just from this season, but other seasons. I interview most of the cast from the majority of seasons. And the aftermath of that experience of being on television, being thrust into the public eye for a short period of time, but still is very intense. So many of them have said that they felt like they needed therapy, they needed counseling afterwards. So many other reality shows, I've talked to people, and they've mirrored that same sentiment, that after being exposed, probably learning things about yourself that you did not know, learning it with the audience, learning it when you're going through the process, and then seeing the way people respond to you, it's got to be definitely overwhelming, specifically to people that are not in the business and have no idea of what it is. So what advice would you give? And then I would like you to answer it as well, Mel, to people that are on reality shows, because I feel like so many people want to be, that's their ultimate goal. They got to get on TV. They got to get I have people that call me all the time just trying to get on television. And then when they get on the show, they have no idea that window is very short. They're famous for a short period of time. And then a lot of them have a hard time dealing with going back to normalcy when that attention is no longer there. So what advice would you give to people in that situation? Because it's really it's hurtful for me to have some of these conversations with some people that are like, we just didn't have anyone to help us once the show was over. We're struggling. We're trying to be relevant, trying to live up to what people think that they saw on the show, and it doesn't always mesh with real life. So what nuggets can you leave with some people that may be watching, that may be struggling with that? A lot of the Ready to Love cast still watch this channel or watch it from time to time, and I know a lot more than even have shared with me are struggling with that.
Yeah. I'd say yes, from working on several productions with reality stars and high profile women. And I years ago, like Mel said, I started watching reality TV from a therapeutic point of view, like of like seeing what's happening and what's going on. And I said years ago that we're going to have therapy to learn how to be human again, because this is not real for many people, but it can feel like it when you get rewarded for being on TV. Even when people hear what I've done, I don't lead with that. It's something about you being on TV that does something to you psychologically. But the people who are in therapy and have a counselor, now there are certain sets and productions that are starting to embrace the kind of work that I would say Fix My Life has been the vanguard, the forerunner of, where you have it incorporated. I would say be very, very careful, first of all, before you say yes to run to be in front of that camera. Because anything in your life that you do not want out there, it is a possibility that not only will the camera see it and the viewing audience see something in you, it can also be aspects of your life that are going to show up. They have whole investigators. They got TikTok investigators now. They go and do all kind of research on your background now. Yeah. So first of all, don't run to that. And I know it's easier said than done when you think that you're about to get the bag. That's also an illusion that you're going to get to the bag. Just like there are record deals, many of us don't know business. We don't know what we're contracting with when we come into these spaces. And then the third thing is you have to have people around you that tell you the truth. You have to have people, and it's not just a feel good moment. Well, I go to church. Okay, that's good and everything, but the work that when we're talking about doing the work, we're talking about if you've been being a self or have a habit for 30 years, 35 years, and you now see yourself exposed. If you feel exposed, it's an opportunity, it's an invitation. It's not necessarily something that you have to run to cover up. And so I would definitely caution, many producers will even caution people who are married. I have told many of you, some of our friends, Christal, haven't I told them, do not run and bring your marriage to reality TV.
I know that's
right. And every time I see it, when the woman has a brand and now her marriage becomes the brand, you are asking for a breakdown. So I do think, sisters, this boss chick culture and my brand is this, I do think that it's distorting our own reality about our marriages and our power couple and all of that. So the separation between your brand and your authenticity. So there's several layers to that. The last thing I would say is doing the work is not just reading a book. I said, not just going to church, it's not just reading a book one time. It's not just having a conversation that feels good. It's actually being uncomfortable long enough to look at yourself, to get some tools, to be able to manage yourself and your emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
Our emotional intelligence also varies. And so I would encourage those of you who are looking for relationships and those of you who are in relationships, your measuring stick not to be what you see on this television, that there's some other requirements that oftentimes is not represented in what you see.
Thank you for that. Mel, I want to ask you the same thing. What advice, I've seen people ask, and I want both of you guys to give your contact information at the end, but for people that are, I'm sure you've probably, watching reality TV, you probably see some needs for therapy and clinical work. So many of the women have said that, and I've talked to mostly women, but even men as well. What do I do after this show is over? I feel like I don't, I feel like I was on a ride and they just let me off and I don't know what to do next. What advice would you give?
Right. And so even in working with some of the, I've worked with NFL players, NBA players, and their wives. And so one of the things I would absolutely say that's just really practical, if you were asked to go on a show, go back and watch the show. Duh. Watch the show. And don't just watch the show. Get on Black Twitter. Do all the things that we know we do when it's not us. Because somehow we have this interpretation that, well, it may be them, but it would never be me.
Always. That's what everyone,
always like my marriage would, our marriage is strong, right? Watch the show. And let's just say it's a pilot, right? So maybe there is no point of reference. Well, find a show that's similar, watch the season and watch it all the way to the reunion. And again, go get in the comments. And general rule of thumb, ask yourself, with what I've read in the comments, are these the type comments I could handle? If I have children, am I willing to take the chance that some trolls somewhere will have these type comments towards my family? And then if your answer is still yes, because you're still like this super couple, this super person, I would suggest, even if you're the person that says you would never ever need therapy, get it just to be PC. Just as general rule of thumb, hey, I don't really need therapy. I know we're great, but because I want to go on this show, maybe this is a step one. This is just something I do, and go and do some of the work that you don't think you need prior to signing that contract. But and it's really crazy to me how some of these people will say, well, I never watched the show.
They all say that. Every single time. It blows my mind.
No.
And I'm like, girl, you watched it. No, I've never. Who goes on a show they've never watched?
That you've never watched. And let's just say, even if you've never watched it, but you're approached about it, it's all over social media. You can find it. So do your due diligence. Look at the people. Look at all the skeletons you have in your closet. Right? When we are keeping it a whole buck, look at the skeletons you keep in your closet that you don't think anyone knows about. Think back to the high school people that know you from way back in the day, who could care less about who you are now. You should expect that someone in production is going to find these people. And then ask yourself, am I okay? Am I okay with this?
And it really even seems to be the things that people don't know about themselves that I think surprises them. I think, me being a publicist for years, I've seen clients that I've worked with on production. I've been a part of production, produced series myself, segments myself, and seen how sometimes people are just very unaware of how they show up. So when I see them on TV, I'm like, yeah, that's you. but they don't know that. And so I think a lot of times we're like, I was edited to look this way. And it's like, you're edited to look like that every day to the rest of us. You just don't see yourself. But
Right.
I think that, it's a great opportunity for growth if you're willing to rise to the challenge and take that experience that could be hurtful and could be surprising, but turn it into something that's able to propel you and to create progression. And that's really what this conversation was about today. I think anything that makes you uncomfortable offers the opportunity to grow. And so I tell the people that come on the show and interview with me, this could be an opportunity for you to grow. This is an opportunity for you to realize something about yourself that you might not have been aware of. And when you get it in your face and you're able to see you, and you don't have anywhere to turn and no one to really blame, you have to deal with it. And I think that can be the blessing in this. I want to thank all my
Hey,
guests.
Christal, let me give one more piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
Ask your circle. Ask your circle. Ask the people that really rock with you that are not afraid to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Ask their opinion ask for their guidance, ask for their wisdom if this is an opportunity, because these are the people that know all of your dirty laundry. Ask the people that know your dirty laundry, that have kept your dirty laundry secret, right? That you trust. Ask them for their feedback.
Yeah, I want to add one more too to what you were saying, Christal. Ask them and to be of support to them. Ask them at the end, off camera even, do you want support with that? That will help you to know where you can go with someone. Because if you're talking to someone on your show that says, I do want help with this, you are resourced enough with Mel, with myself, with others to be able to say, I can send you to someone. Or, even we could do a show about that. But if they tell you, nah, girl, I'm good, then you know how far to go and what to invest in your conversation with them. I do that all the time on shows. There are times when I go to a production and the reality star has an agenda, and they don't care about me coming to support them. They have an agenda, and their agenda supersedes me wanting to support them or help them. And I know exactly how far I'm going to go with them. I'm not going to put myself out to be a martyr either. That martyr model is also dead. So don't martyr yourself in the name. I had a mentor tell me that when I was doing it. Don't martyr yourself in the name of loving Black women either.
Yeah. No, that's true. Because there are women that come on after we close out, we talk, and there are some that I know genuinely want help, and there are others that they are not open. They really just want another opportunity to be back in front of an audience. And so, but I really feel like this is not even so much for them. It's also for so many other people that listen that are going through the same things, maybe on a different scale. Maybe they're not on reality TV, but maybe they're running into men that they're dating saying similar things and not understanding. I will say this, my tribe, and it's funny because I have a picture of my bridesmaids and they're all close friends of mine. There were 10 bridesmaids in my wedding. Most of them, if I asked them, they all agree with me because I have like-minded women around me. So sometimes I needed to get outside of my friend group because I was surrounded by other very successful women who all of us didn't think there was anything wrong with us. And so I had to go back and say, sis, we are all wrong. We're wrong. So I needed to get outside of that circle because my circle was very much synonymous. The behavior was synonymous with myself because we attract, like-minded people. So it's refreshing for me to get to outside of that circle with a woman that I respect that's been further than I am, and to be able to listen to that. So sometimes that immediate circle is not where you can get that breakthrough from because you guys are all operating in that same energy. The people that are out, shoulder to shoulder with you may not be able to see that see it from a different perspective. So I want to give both of you guys an opportunity to share, because so many people have been touched by what you've delivered. I know, Coach LaTanya, I'm actually in one of your programs right now. There's so many things that you're doing. So if you could share that, and then I definitely, Mel, there's been people asking, are you practicing? Do you do virtual? So LaTanya, share with people where they can find out more about what you have going on, so they can get, some sister support if they're interested.
Okay. So I'm Rebirth with LaTanya on all platforms, and you can even do, if you want private support, that is available as well. I also like to do for what I call a blueprint reading, for you to be able to understand your personality type and your archetype and your feminine as well for private. But right now I am doing a 30-day process, 30 days of nurture. And how this came about is I have been doing almost a run. I've been called to talk about this soft life. And so what we discovered is that a lot of women can't get to the soft life because the feminine is malnourished. So 30 days of nurture is using your soft skills for mind, body, and spirit success. And so we are literally creating a formula for women to really dive into aspects of themselves and move stories out of the way that keep them from being able to be soft for themselves first. So you can go to Linktree and put in Rebirth with LaTanya, or I'll send Christal the link so that it'll be in the comment section below or in the description section below. And you can also go to LaTanyaTaylor.com if you just want to request or get to me.
And Mel, can you share your information as well?
So on most social media platforms, it is the official _ Mel Preston, and that is for Instagram, as well as TikTok. And I believe on Facebook, it's just the official Mel Preston. Again, I'm from Mississippi, but we've been in Indiana for the past 10 years. Just moved to Atlanta during the pandemic. And so, Christal, you kind of caught me in transition, because I do have a private practice called Matter of Focus Counseling. And so I do see clients virtually. However, I am, as of this month, transitioning to seeing couples and women in person in the Marietta, Roswell area at the Marriage Point. So you can go to matterofocuscounseling.com, or you could go to themarriagepoint.com as well if you're interested in therapy. I do mainly see couples and women, and relationships is what we work on a daily basis. So whether it is your relationship with your family or your romantic relationships, that's what we're working on. And then I also do some VIP and concierge counseling and therapy as well.
Well, again, I appreciate both of you coming on. I put Coach LaTanya's link in the comments, and I will definitely try to do that again for those of you that are watching the replay. I want to give you all Coach LaTanya, you've been such a blessing to me in my life, and my marriage. I need to come back and sit up under you a little bit more, because marriage it's not. I don't think we're ever at a point where we've finished the journey. You're always on a journey. You're always working to get better. You're always working to learn more about yourself and to uncover more and learn how to fine tune. And so I'm definitely on that journey. I have no problem saying that, but I want to give both of you guys my sincere thanks for spending 2 hours here talking with us tonight and sharing, which I think people have really appreciated in the comments. We're going to come back tomorrow night for the recap. Mo and I will be back. And I wanted to do this conversation because I wanted to say, hey, now we're going to be honest tomorrow. I'm always going to be honest. So we're going to be honest with this recap, you guys, but we want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that's responsible, but also with honesty. We got to keep it honest. Mo?
I also mentor single, beautiful women. If you have, issues you want to discuss and things of that nature, just trying to work through things as single people.
Is he serious?
Just, go ahead.
So, ladies, I appreciate you guys joining us tonight. And Latanya, I'll follow up. I need to talk with you tomorrow. So I'll reach out to you and get a time when we can get on a call tomorrow. Mel, thank you so much. I'm glad to know that you're here close.
Thank you.
I'd love to talk to you as well.
It's been my honor. Thank you for having me always.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
Same here. Thank you.
All right. Well, Mo, we're gonna be back tomorrow. What do you are you ready for this reunion now? Are you ready for the reunion?
Man, you have no idea.
Well, I appreciate everybody that's been hanging out with us. We've been on here for 2 hours and 6 minutes, and the chat has been consistent. I appreciate you guys wanting to tune in for tonight's conversation and being open to hearing what we had to say. And to I brought people that I knew would have something to say and really would be able to speak to this in a context that I think would help everybody. So I appreciate everybody for watching, and those of you that gave super chats, thank you so much for that as well. We will be back tomorrow night. We're gonna be done with all this mental health conversation, and we're gonna get down to the facts of what's going on in part 2 of this reunion. Mo, any last words?
Buckle up.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I love you guys for watching. Have a blessed Thursday night. I'll see you back here at 10 o'clock for the Ready to Love recap. We're going to end it out. All Ready to Love comes to an end tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. Be ready for that. And we've moved on with Make a Move. We're on to Make a Move. We have a live event happening with Make a Move. So stay tuned for more. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow night at 10 o'clock.